Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Comic Corner. Today I am your host TJ, aka Fat Thor, and I am joined by the awesome, the incredible Steve Orlando, writer of such books as Scarlet Witch, the new Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and the newest graphic novel that we are here to talk about today, Silver Vessels. Steve, thank you so much for coming back to the show.
It's my pleasure.
We're super excited to have you. You were on recently with our friend Damon, who's the usual host of this show. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today. But if you guys all want to go check out Steve's comic origin story and more talk about Scarlet Witch, go check out that episode. But Steve, let's get right down to business. Let's talk about all this great stuff you got going on. Scarlet Witch just came to an end recently, and you just started up with Scarlet Witch and the Quicksilver. And I gotta ask, so first of all, I really love the series. I've really been loving the Scarlet Witch. I gotta admit that I'm not the biggest expert on her character, especially the history. But when I saw your series coming out, I immediately picked it up. And one thing that I really love about it is the way in which you structure the book. And it's the kind of villain of the week, but you also have those kind of overarching arcs, like the stuff with Darcy and the stuff with Magneto. So I wanted to ask you, how do you go about approaching that, especially for Scarlet Witch? Like, how did you land on that approach for this kind of story?
Well, in a way, it's become a throwback approach, but for the vast majority of comic book storytelling, this was the standard approach. Back in the late 90s, when we first started getting into things like decompression, the 4-issue arc, which you saw in stuff like Morrison and Porter's Justice League, Ellis and Hitch's Authority, for example. That was revolutionary at the time. We started spreading out these stories into blockbuster style arcs, and it was groundbreaking. 20 years later, of course, I think decompression is still extremely valid when it works for the story, but what is old is new again. And especially as comics become more expensive, which they are all the time, it's my view and the view of my collaborators as well that folks deserve as much story as possible for that money. So when we came to Scarlet Witch, we wanted to do a sort of classic superhero book. That's how we've been presenting Wanda. And part and parcel of that was going back to that storytelling style. As you noted, like the functionally a done in one with an overarching plot that simmers until the end of what folks would see now as the end of the trade, the end of the macro arc. So we're trying to sort of have our fingers or feet in both worlds, our fingers in both pies, choose your metaphor. But for me, it's like, it's a return to form. These are the types of books that made me love comics back in the 80s when I was first buying them. So for folks who are enjoying it now, it's been a pleasure to present comics in that way. If you picked up books pretty much anytime after 2000, you're probably used to decompression. And we're doing that a little bit too. I mean, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver is a big blockbuster arc. But, the whole key is that we're going to take the format and we're going to use what fits the story. When it comes to Scarlet Witch, to borrow a phrase from a recently retired icon, the only thing that's for sure is nothing's for sure. And all is that you're going to be getting something fresh, something creative, something new. And if it's meant for a single issue, we're going to do that. And if it's meant for more, we're going to give it that space.
I love that so much. And it works so well with this story. And like I said, that's one of the things I really love about the series is, every time picking it up, who's coming through the door this week, and it's just so much fun. And like you said, you are implementing that a little bit in the Quicksilver. So I got to ask too, with this new Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, what are some of the things that you learned from your first run on Scarlet Witch that have affected the way that you're approaching this new series?
If I learn one thing, it's that I need to write Pietro as much as possible because he's a pleasure for me to work on, as is the interplay with Darcy and so on and so forth. But it's going into Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. It was about sort of rethinking how we're going to look at Wanda's lore, as you've seen in the first 2 issues, her backstory, whatever you want to call it, whatever sort of buzz phrase you want. It can be a little complicated, as folks know, but the key here is to boil it down into the things that are really, really key for this story. It doesn't mean that if we're not talking about something else from her past that it's suddenly like been retconned or something, but focusing it in on a strong part of her backstory and origins in a way that again resonates in the main story in the present. So we are doing a little bit more of a deeper dive into Wanda's backstory slightly, which we've kind of avoided in some ways because she was looking forward. And likewise, we wanted to bring in new readers. We don't want to feel them have them feel weighted down by having to read a lot of back issues and things like that. Now that we have that trust, hopefully, we have that goodwill, we are digging in a little bit, but it's still going to be all things, of course, that are presented right in the book. What we learned throughout is rather than sort of the smorgasbord approach where it's everything all at once, with Wanda, with a character who has such a fascinating backstory and such a sordid and complicated and awesomely sort of strange family history and life path, to get the most juice out of it, you kind of got to focus in on one thing to analyze at a time. So we were doing that with aspects of her character in the single run. Now we're doing that with aspects of her relationship with Pietro and their greater purpose in each other's lives for the miniseries.
I love that. And so with a character like Scarlet Witch, I feel like her powers are just like absolutely insane. And like even just thinking about like the capabilities of that, like it hurts my brain. So with doing the first run on Scarlet Witch, you did a lot of really cool and creative things with her powers. And with this new run with Pietro, I'm curious how do you again kind of approach doing different and creative things with such a, like I said, open-ended power set like that?
Well, in a way, Pietro is easier, and in a way, he's not. Like Pietro's powers, broadly speaking, and this broad is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, are based on science, and Wanda's are based on magic, right? They are again, broadly speaking. I'm not suddenly retconning something for the comment section, but science and magic are our two sort of ways to explain life, to explain reality. They always have been. They're how we look up in the sky and explain what's there. Going back thousands and thousands of years. So they're mirrors of each other. Their two abilities are mirrors of each other. But when it comes to Pietro, because of course science is real, it is in a way it's easier, right? You saw his sort of mantis shrimp ability that he used in the second issue. We can look to real things that have a version of super speed in nature to see how we can then lens that and apply it to Pietro. Same with his speed reading, right? Like a lot of things that Pietro does are based off real human behaviors. But of course we got to blow it up to the comic book scale. Speed reading, I mean, that was honestly inspired by this phenomenon I've noticed that many people have noticed. It's like when you go to the hotel, right? Most people tend to instantly remember their hotel number, their room number, but then as soon as you check out, that information is like gone because it's not needed anymore. And that happens to me all the time. And so that's a real human behavior. How can we then apply that? Something that's based in the natural sciences into a superhero world. You get this Pietro thing where he can supercharge his brain with information, but because of the super speed aspect, he's only remembering it for short periods of time. But for a time, he can learn anything almost instantly. That's thinking about super speed and applying it to an aspect of his life that is not his feet. Same with applying it to his fingers and so on and so forth. So in a way, it's easier, but also because there's a prominent person at the other company who wears a bright red suit and can do things that are not even remotely based in science. It's also challenging because what hasn't been done by the other guy. So
yeah, true.
There's always a plus and a minus, but it has been a joy being able to find new cool stuff for Pietro because I think a lot of people do kind of consider that he's quote unquote not as powerful as Wanda. But equal doesn't always mean the same, as we'll eventually hit on in the book. And so he's quite powerful as well in ways that people won't expect.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the dynamic of their relationship, even in just the first two issues that you set up. Like I said, I'm not an expert on their relationship and stuff. So, I don't want to speak on the history of it, but from coming in fresh, I love the way you play their dynamic.
Thank you.
That all brings us to this new book that we're here to talk about, Silver Vessels, coming from Mad Cave, new graphic novel. And it's going to be following a group of kids going down to Florida to investigate sort of like a mystery and go treasure hunting. It's kind of like got like Goonies vibes to it. Super fun, very exciting. I was loving it as I was reading it. So where did the idea for this story come from? Not only like the treasure and mystery aspect, but focusing on these three group of kids.
Well, I mean, the Goonies vibe, that's you are dead on, right? Like, we wanted to do a book that homaged not just those movies. Like, it's a little bit of the Goonies, it's a little bit Stand By Me, but it's the summer vacation movie, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term, which is, if it's not a subgenre, I just made it one. But to that end, Scale Trade came, or pardon me, I have too many books in the brain. Silver Vessels came together because the folks at Mad Cave approached me with a very small kernel of an idea, which they've done before. It was same with Exorcist Never Die, which is one of my favorite books I worked on last year. They said, "Do you want to build this together?" Because we hypothetically we like you, but we definitely trust you creatively. And we want to do this adventure treasure hunting book set in the Florida Keys. Why do we want this? Because one of the publishers at Mad Cave is from the area, and the push was to recreate that sort of childlike wonder and feel he felt growing up there. So with that very broad mandate, it was time to get down and see to the foundation and see how we could build a book out of that, and how we could, yes, homage those sort of like teenage summers where anything is possible that we all grew up watching. I'd even say going back to like the early live action era of Nickelodeon, things when I was watching like Pete and Pete and like Salute Your Shorts, those sort of strange, almost hyper real worlds. That's what we wanted to bring into 2024. And so knowing that we wanted to celebrate that area somewhere that both the editor and the publisher were intensely connected to and great resources for when it came to depicting it, we just put the story together. We asked what that type of story would look like in 2024. And of course, it's different. The world's views on treasure hunting have changed, certainly, in the past 20 to 30 years. What teenage life is like and the pressures and struggles thereof have changed in those years. What family looks like hasn't necessarily changed. It's always been that way, but we're speaking more realistically and authentically about it. So we got together and started laying the bricks, man, and knew we wanted to celebrate the Florida Keys, knew we wanted to do a new kind of teenage summer adventure, and that's how Silver Vessels came to life.
I love it. And I think you absolutely nailed the vibe as well, where it's like, it's definitely an all ages book, but it's never once did I feel like it was like kiddie or child. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, like I said, exciting. It's fun. You really get invested in these characters, which is, I want to ask you with these characters, we got Josh, Hunter, and forgive me, I'm blanking on the girl's name. I just had it here and I can't find it.
Well, you got me searching for it now because because the reality is, as I said, we work.
You
on
got so much stuff going on.
Hope, boom.
Hope.
God, sorry, I was just rambling for time until my brain started working. People, you got to cut me some slack here. I'm pushing 40 now, and my brain is pushing 140 thanks to comics. So, it all happens in time. But it's
Hey, we understand. I'm the one doing the interview, and I didn't have it written down, like I said. So we all make mistakes, man. And you got so much in that brain going on. You got magic, you got science, you got treasure. Like, I can't even begin to imagine.
But I mean, it's WrestleMania weekend, right? So
yeah,
so there's plenty of stuff going on. But it's Hope, Hunter, and Josh. Yes, absolutely.
Hope, Hunter, and Josh. So with these characters, again, same with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. I really love the dynamic between these three, and I found as I was reading that they all really complement each other in very specific ways. And so I'm curious, when you were forming this story, like you were saying, you kind of had the groundwork laid with the Florida and the treasure hunting angle. But when you were crafting these characters, how did you like land on these three specifically?
I think we just knew, you want, first of all, whenever you're building a group of friends is not like building a team. If you're doing a Capes book or something, you want tension between them. You want to push and pull. And, these are just because these three folks are really, really great friends doesn't mean they always agree or get along. So there's, you want that chop busting, you want that keeping people honest, keeping your friends honest. Because if your friends can't call you out, who can? And at least that's sort of my point of view and experience in my life. So we knew that all these people were going to start with a journey that was secret, and through this group adventure, everything was going to come to light, and from there it's just about building combustible pieces, building someone like Hope, who talks a big game until it of course comes to her own struggle, and then she needs encouragement. She seems like she's got it all figured out. We've all known someone like that, the teen that is quote unquote mature for their age or whatever, but of course the reality is always more complicated, and just because someone acts mature doesn't mean they're still not the age they are. So it just comes down to I said combustible pieces, but that's the real answer. Knowing that these characters are all going to have their A to B, but that they can't reach that B without each other. And in a group of three, that generally means that if one person is going to be pushing them along to their end goal, that the other is going to kind of be like creating a hurdle there, and that's what you see with all three of them. But that of course doesn't mean they're antagonists with each other. That's just the realities of personalities and friendships, where interests and goals are not a perfect circle Venn diagram, but there is that center still. I mean, that's what relationships are. None of us get along well all the time. Well, it's obvious it happens organically in life. When you're creating a book, of course, you have to bake all that stuff in, because otherwise where's the drama, where's the conflict? And to be frank, why are you reading the book?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really love, like I said, the treasure hunting angle that you set up in the book, and also the antagonist that you have in this book. We have this kind of group of billionaires called the Apex, and they wear like really cool shark mask and stuff. And I really love these guys. And so again, when deciding on the kids, how did you then go with this whole kind of billionaire group to be this antagonist, as opposed to, like, I feel like typical story, like treasure hunter stories, it's like, the evil treasure hunter, you know what I mean? But I thought it was very interesting how you made it like this group of very like wealthy people.
Well, I think there's a little bit there's a little bit in the sauce there, because at the end of the day, they are sort of, if you want to take the Indiana Jones route, right? Although I would argue that Indiana Jones also, I mean, when it comes to treasure hunting, it's romantic, but it does kind of need an update because he is still stealing things from other cultures.
Yeah.
He's just putting it in a museum instead of selling it. I mean, that used to be where the moral was. Now the moral line has changed. But the point remains is that if you look at like Indy and Belloc, their dynamic is very similar to our heroes and to the Apex. As a matter of fact, the Apex, as we've seen, sort of lie and give the Indiana Jones line right up front, like, oh, we just want to protect these things.
Yeah.
But the dynamic is very similar, even if his motivations might be somewhat outdated for the modern context. Indy believes he's defending and protecting these treasures and honoring them. Let's say he believes he's honoring them, even if the way to do that has changed. Whereas all of these treasures, all these things, they're just commodities to the Apex, and that's not unlike Belloc. Belloc wants things for his own ends. He's happy to sell them to the Nazis, for example. If we're just going to carry the Raiders of the Lost Arks metaphor, and of course it's even more, as we update into the modern context. Yes, the Apex want these commodities for themselves, but they're also, we've added to this that this sense of entitlement that sort of comes with wealth. This is mine because I want it. Oh, well, what are you going to do with it? Absolutely nothing. That's actually the heartbreak, right? Like buying a priceless piece of art and putting it in your fucking bathroom. That's sort of the tragedy, I would say, of one of the many tragedies of modern wealth and privilege and entitlement is the aimlessness that is almost toxic. Right. It's not even that they want to make money off these things. They want them simply to have them so that no one else can. And that's sort of the core of greed that I think speaks to hopefully in a way that isn't too pedantic. Speaks to a lot of toxic attitudes today. It's not just I need to get mine. It's I need to get mine and you need to not get yours. And we have to personify that with our villains, and that is an incredibly cynical type mindset. So what better to dissuade that and dispel that than sort of that innocence and true wonder that comes with people who are still in their adolescence.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the head. We see that a lot today in today's day and age, and going back to what you were saying with kind of updating the teenage treasure hunting stories like the Goonies and stuff. I think that was the perfect angle to hit with it, and really made them feel like real people, like real people that you don't like in real life. And I also wanted to ask, so we were just talking about, Pietro and his powers being based in science, and Wanda's powers, like the research going into that. And with a story like this, again, you kind of talk about how you had the base laid out with it being set in Florida from one of the editors at at Mad Cave.
You see, he
And
did it too.
yeah, I did it too, man. Hey, these M names, man, the publishers, all with the M's. But with this story, so this wasn't this was, again, the editor at Mad Cave, more personal for them, like how they grew up. So what was the research like going into this book, with not only the setting but with the treasure hunting angle as well, like coming up with the clues and what the kids are going to discover? How did you approach that?
Well, I mean, so the thing is that every book is personal. It's just what
Mm-hmm.
thing is personal.
Yeah.
While the raw emotion that was infectious for the keys comes from our editor and one of the publishers at Mad Cave, the journeys of the kids are, of course, are more inspired by things I went through. When I'm writing the book. I mean, that's just creating.
Mm-hmm.
Katya, who drew the book, puts of herself into the pages as well. We all do, even if we're not trying. We all do. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So, but luckily, the history of the Florida Keys is very easily researched. Especially once we realized in brainstorming and developing the book that we were going to base this around these three forts. Um, and the fact that we were going to base the silver vessels on a real shipwreck. These are
Mm-hmm.
all things that were there, easy to read about, easy to track down. And because we're in this sort of speculative fiction world, it is a world with magnetic jetpacks. We quickly decided that it was going to be that sort of subtle fantasy. It was going to tread the line. I'm not even going to say tread the line, but step into the fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, much like we all think about, in the world of the silver vessels, the fantastic is always hidden beneath. So when they're up, the stuff that's requires research is, of course, when they're above ground, the interesting locations, the notable historic points that people maybe don't know exist in the keys, things like the southernmost point,
Mm-hmm.
which we knew immediately once we started digging in we're going to be featured. Um, and then, of course, like the more that sits in reality, the more telling it is when we go underground, and of course the hidden realm. If you want to talk in sort of broad thematic concepts, once you step out into the unknown, then the
Mm-hmm.
boundaries of reality lessen. Obviously, we don't have to research, though I'm being an asshole here. We don't have to research underground sort of time caves where dinosaurs and Neanderthals still walk, because at least to date those aren't real. But that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point. When you dot your I's and cross your T's on what does need to be real, in my mind at least, it only makes the fantastic stand out in even starker contrast.
Yeah, because then, I mean, what rules you can break, right? Because then, like, the limits are they just go away once you know what the rules are. So I really love that, and I really loved this book. Like I said, it really just hit that kind of nostalgia feeling, but in a fresh new way, like something I've never seen, but also it felt really at home in the same way. So again, I can't say enough great things about this book. This book is already out. It came out March 13th, correct?
It is out. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're wide. We're out there, and it's my first young adult book. I did a middle grade book a couple years ago, Rainbow Bridge with Aftershock. I wrote that with
Mhm.
Steve Fox, art by Valentina Brancati, and not bad. I'm gonna brush my shoulder a little bit. We did get an Eisner nomination for it, so.
Hell yeah.
And now this is my first young adult release, so I couldn't be more excited for people to stick it out. It has the imagination of my big two work. Again, if I'm just being a little immodest for a minute, if you'll allow
Mhm.
me that.
Please.
And just beautiful work by Katya Vecchio. And a grounded story that I was really, really happy to tell, despite all the dinosaurs and all those things. When it comes to the end, the book is all about that last page. It's about those three friends staring off into the horizon of the beach and that feeling that anything is possible. That to me is that teenage transitional life, and that's what makes it really special. So I hope people check it out. And I'll be excited every time I sign it at cons. I'll be excited every time people mention it, because this is, we all do much more than superheroes.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, these are the types of books that are a treasure to get to work on, no pun intended, and hopefully the same for people to read.
Yeah, well, it was an absolute treasure for me to read, and I suggest everybody watching and listening to this episode run to your comic shop, run to your bookstore, pick up your copy, because I guarantee you will love it. If you consider my opinion on books at all, trust me, you're going to really love this one. And before we get out of here, Steve, I do have one more question for you. So recently, our main host, who's usually here, Damon, actually met up with you recently at one of his local comic shops that you did a signing at, and we were talking, and he was telling me the story about how there's a guy at the shop there that buys every single Scarlet Witch book, like all the covers, everything there. And you actually were kind enough and you bought his entire pull list. And I just thought that was such a cool story. Like, that was so awesome. So I just wanted to ask you really quickly, we talk about a lot the importance of your local comic shop and supporting your local comic shop. So can you just speak a little bit about your thoughts on, again, comic shops and the supporting your local comic shop?
I mean, I can. It's worth noting that I'm not local to Connecticut, although I do have some family there. So, but shout out to BoomTube Comics, which I think is what you're talking about. I listen, it's vitally important, right? Like, I mean, well, first of all, like, beyond all that, buying the books is important. In an age where every single book that, to be frank, any of us work on is available on a pirate site before we wake up in the morning on Wednesday. We creators need sales to continue doing their job. And that's not just on independent books, like on big two books. Our success is often gauged by the sales of our book. Like, it can be a creative victory, but that's ultimately a Pyrrhic victory if no one buys it. So the first thing is to say is support creators that you love. It doesn't have to be me, but support creators that you love. And along with that, boom, here we get to support your local comic book shop. Because these are the people that bridge my world and the world of readers. Like these retailers are our lifeline to getting these books out to the customers that want them. They're working to develop every day to develop spaces that are welcoming, and to help the folks that come in expand their knowledge of the comic publishing world. And I don't mean being didactic. I mean helping them see that if they love this, well, maybe they'll love this. If you enjoyed these two books, well, here's three more. These are the people with the wealth of knowledge to sort of take folks by the hand and guide them as they desire into finding even more books and worlds to explore. And they work hard. Comics retail is not an easy job. Retail in general is not an easy job. It's not like comics is on an island. And these are folks that are much like me, who, listen, I pay for my life by making stuff up and selling it. And these folks buy that stuff that I make up, and they pay for their lives by selling it. So it's important, if to support small businesses, it's important to go into your local store. Of course, it's convenient to get on Amazon and say bing, bang, boom, beep, bop. But I trust me, when I say this, Jeff Bezos doesn't need your money. Like, he doesn't. I mean, he could launch a sedan full of $1 trillion bills up, and well, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but he could launch a car into space every day and light it on fire, and he would be fine for the rest of his life. But who couldn't is your local comic retailer. So these are the face. These people, their faces are the faces of the comics market. Please go and support them. Please talk to them, learn their stories, and ask them, what's next. Ask them what might be fun to explore after the books you already like. They have a wealth of knowledge. They work their asses off, and so support them. Head in, start that conversation, and I'm very excited for all the folks that do, because there's an endless supply of comic worlds out there to find and enjoy.
Beautifully said. Steve Orlando, not only an amazing writer, but a man of the people. Steve, I cannot thank you enough for coming and nerding out with me today. It has been so much fun. Before we get out of here, please let the people know. So we got Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. We got Silver Vessels in stores. What else do you got that the people can go? I know you're a busy guy working away.
Well, we've both been stumbling over it today due to lettering similarities due to consonants. So let's point out Scale Trade from Magma Comics, which is out early May. This is a book with Megan Wong. I'm extremely excited for it to come out. It's a dragon rescue book. It's a modern science fantasy, so please check that out. I have more Spider-Man 2099 coming out this year, and that is all I can say about that. But keep an eye out.
Okay.
An edition for my third Spider-Man 2099 series is going to be hitting in June, I believe. The Iceman collection, Astonishing Iceman, is going to be out next month. Actually, it's April this month. And what else is going on? I mean, I'm all over the place is the thing.
Say we are eating good.
And I'm kind of forgetting the major thing because I'm a terrible person. Also out from Mad Cave for Free Comic Book Day is the kickoff of our Gotcha Man line, for which I'm one of the 3 writers. I'm working on, first up for me is the Galactor book, the villain book, which I'm super excited about. I'm doing it with Kath Lobo, who did the Donna Troy one-shot with me at DC. And she is just an exemplary artist for the world of Gotcha Man and the world of the Galactor. And if you're sick of hearing me ramble about that, I mean, you can still check out Cullen Bunn and Chris Batista's main Gotcha Man book. Chris is the biggest Gotcha Man fan I've ever encountered in my life. You know, when I got the offer to work on Gotcha Man, I said to Mad Cave that they had to hire Chris to draw it. They said, that's a great point. Much like Ozymandias, we hired him like 35 days ago. And Cullen is huge in it as well. And also my friend Tommy Lee Edwards, who is going to be doing the parallel series with me. Like we're giving folks every lens you could have possibly want on Gotcha Man. You know, we have stuff that's going to reward longtime fans. We have stuff that's going to be welcoming to new readers who just recognize the costumes or maybe just think they look cool. And we have stuff that's going to push that sort of vertigo edge and challenge the characters, challenge the license. And that's coming out too. So it's an incredibly dynamic launch. I'm extremely proud of it. And if you pick up the Free Comic Book Day issue, you will get a taste of all 3 books that we're launching with.
Oh, I love it. Rockstar cast on all those books. And I mean, how many times do I got to say it, people? If you see Steve's name on a book, pick it up. I guarantee you're going to enjoy it. You're going to love it. Steve, once again, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. Follow Agents of Fandom on YouTube and all the socials. Check out Agents of Fandom on all socials, TikTok, Twitter, all that stuff. And again, go pick up Steve's books as you will not regret it. Thank you so much, Steve.
My pleasure.